Welcome back. Returning Amazon items just got easier. You can now make returns at FedEx without a box or a label. More than 10,000 locations nationwide are now taking those returns. You can also drop off returns at Whole Foods, the UPS store, Kohl's, and Staples. Sometimes innovation doesn't come from a lab. It comes from a classroom. Students at the University of St. Thomas are taking on a challenge straight from the Minnesota Wild, designing the next generation of ankle and shin protection for NHL players. And as Gordon Severson shows us, the idea these students are coming up with could someday end up on the ice.
Engineers often say their job is to solve the world's problems.
That's looking better.
Problems these St. Thomas students often hear about in their textbooks and equations.
I like this idea.
So when the Minnesota Wild came to them with a problem,
We thought this was something that was just right up our alley.
more than a dozen students answered the call.
We love to see the real world problems. We love to see the applied engineering.
Mechanical engineering professor John Wentz says 3 teams of students gave up their spring break plans to create a better shin guard.
I would even cut these edges.
The Wild wanted a new perspective to see if someone outside of the game could come up with a better idea.
Have it kind of angled outwards.
It is incredibly cool to see how their minds work and the ideas that they can come up with that maybe industry professionals maybe haven't thought of yet.
Bella Iverson with the Wild says the students will have 3 days to come up with their design.
Keep it like it is. Try that out.
The teams will present their prototypes to a panel of judges on Friday.
The students say the biggest challenge they're dealing with is they need to create a shin guard that offers protection, but is also lightweight and can move around with the players as they skate around the ice.
The quick turnaround is also a challenge.
We're kind of cutting into the wire.
Junior John Edwards says his team is experimenting with liquids inside the padding,
Feels like hard glue.
using cornstarch and water as a prototype to show how the right liquid can move around freely and also absorb the impact.
They're getting in front of this hard piece of rubber that's flying 100 miles per hour in ways that your padding is not designed to protect in certain ways.
The judges will decide which design they like best. And who knows, one of these ideas could eventually become the new NHL standard shin guard.
We just want to see what these fresh minds can come up with.
Gordon Severson, KARE 11 News.
Pretty cool. The students have been invited to the last Wild home game of the season to thank them for their work. The team is also hoping to make this an annual competition where every year students redesign a different piece of hockey equipment. Right now, a group of 4 astronauts are on the way to the moon for the first time in decades. Artemis 2 took off yesterday on a historic 10-day mission. Before they blasted off, NBC's Aaron Gilchrist sat down with a man who knows exactly what their mission will be like. He's the last man to step on the moon.
We have a liftoff. Only 6 other living people have been to the moon and back.
I just walked up here and I saw this unusual slight coloration in the surface.
Harrison Jack Schmitt has the distinction of being the last man to step onto the lunar surface.
Apollo 17 astronauts Gene Cernan and Jack Schmitt are on the moon.
We were in a valley on the moon deeper than the Grand Canyon. That's a little bit hard to fathom.
At 37 years old, Schmitt, a geologist, became the first scientist to visit the moon, a part of Apollo 17 along with Gene Cernan and Ron Evans.
I got 83%.
Over the 12-day mission, Schmitt would spend 22 hours working on the surface during 3 expeditions.
What do you think were the biggest lessons learned?
We're learning about the sun and about the Earth at the same time.
Understanding the constructs on the moon, we're learning more about the Earth and about the sun.
The moon's been out there recording whatever the sun decided to do for 4.5 billion years. And we're just now beginning to understand how do we decipher that.
Now, 54 years after his great adventure into deep space, Schmitt is cheering on the new class of explorers in Commander Reed Weissman, pilot Victor Glover, and specialists Christina Cook and Jeremy Hansen.
The crew is going to be busy making sure that everything is properly configured for that flyby. Be ready for anything unexpected, but have a great time. Enjoy it. That's the main advice, is enjoy the mission.
These days, Schmitt can't help but be nostalgic. 250,000 miles from home, walking on the moon, planting an American flag, extracting more than 200 pounds of lunar samples.
Get her way down there.
including a moon rock housed near Schmidt's home at the New Mexico Natural History Museum.
The sparkling, I just noticed, the sparkles, that's the surfaces of this mineral ilmenite.
I was strolling on the moon one day.
Even as he was making history, Schmidt was also looking toward the future.
There's part of the recording of your time on the lunar surface where you said to Gene Cernan,
Well, I tell you, Gene, I think next generation ought to accept this as a challenge. To see them leave footsteps like these someday.
let's see him leave footsteps like these someday. What did you mean by that?
Well, I meant think big.
You think Mars is attainable?
Mars is attainable, and I think we will keep going.
Schmidt talks about exploration with a glimmer in his eye. Even after all these years, the final frontier is still exciting. Aaron Gilchrist, NBC News, Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Stick with us. More news and weather's coming up after the break.